She is a Newsweek correspondent. They are putting together a report on what happened toward the end. Some might call it the bitter end, I suppose. One of the reports that you guys filed is that there was actually more than $150,000 that was spent by Sarah Palin. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially what the campaign initially, McCain had told Sarah Palin that she needed to go purchase some suits for the convention. They told her to buy 3 suits and then to buy a super husband and maybe some clothes for her kids for the convention. But what they've learned later is that, obviously there were some spending sprees at Neiman Marcus and Saks. But what they learned late last week is that she had actually continued to spend money even though they had told her not to. And by what she had done is basically start charging items on the personal credit cards of some of her staffers.
Wait, let me stop you. Did you just say that there were personal credit cards from McCain workers? How would she have gotten her hands on those personal credit cards?
Well, they were charging it. We were told by several McCain aides that they were charging. She was asking them to purchase things on their own personal credit cards.
So she was told, go out and buy 3 really nice suits because we're going to be making a lot of appearances. And what was she given a number of how much she could spend? Maybe 20, 10, 30?
They were just told her to buy 3 suits. I don't know necessarily if there was a number, but it obviously wasn't near the $150,000 mark that it eventually reached. More than that.
But she ended up spending that money, and it caused real friction, according to your report, and one in the New York Times today, which is also an interesting report, saying that what it caused is friction between loyalties in the McCain camp, because there's some people who were, Randy Schumann, for example, was more loyal to Palin and lost his job in the last week, perhaps as a result of it. Is that correct?
Well, basically what happened is that, it didn't begin this way. When Sarah Palin was added to the ticket, there was a lot of enthusiasm. Eventually, she began pushing back against her handlers, and that caused a very poisonous atmosphere within the campaign. So therefore, there was divided camps. Some people who were happy with what was happening, looking at the crowds and saying John McCain didn't get these kind of crowds, and then the others who said, that she needed to be more controlled and stuff and sort of, do more on talking points and so on. And so at the end, there was a lot of finger pointing, and again, just the closing stuff added to it in the final week. I mean, one of the most interesting things that I think we learned with the report, our post-election report that we did, is that, John McCain and Sarah Palin, when they went on the road together, didn't really talk all that much.
Wow.
Which is sort of surprising, since, had they won, they would be at the White House together.
Well, it's interesting. I think we have that picture of Schumann and Nicole Wallace. I think, Roger, if you can put that one up. It's interesting what happened between those two, because it appears that Nicole Wallace was taking a lot of heat for buying the clothing, and now she's saying, you know what, it wasn't my fault, and then Schumann ends up, according to CNN today, in interviews that we have done, saying that, in fact, it was kind of a disagreement that they were having at the time. So, it's interesting the way this whole thing is shaken out. Let me keep you for another block. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the effect on McCain and more on what you just mentioned about how they weren't talking to each other. We'll have that for you. Stay with us.
Frankly, around the time of the CBS interview with Sarah Palin in early September is really when the two sides went to war with each other, and therefore, some people would share tickets with the senior McCain staffers. There were some, people that were close to Steve Smith, who was McCain's senior strategist, and so therefore he knew some of the things that were going on. But that phone call, again, just added, I think, to the frustration within, McCain's upper campaign hierarchy.
I can't wait to read this article that you guys have coming out, because one of the things that it also talks about is William Ayers. It's fascinating to think she first went on the attack associating Barack Obama with William Ayers without, as you all seem to infer in your article, get clearance from the McCain folks that this is actually going to be a strategy that's going to be used.
There was a general frustration on the part of several, top McCain staffers that she wouldn't necessarily go by what they were telling her to do. Another frustration for them is that they would ask her to appear on stage with certain congressional candidates, and she would turn it down because she didn't necessarily agree with them. There was one instance when she was asked to appear on stage with a congressional candidate in New Hampshire, and she didn't want to do it because he was pro-choice. And so, that is all sort of boiling out now that the campaign is over. A lot of finger-pointing among both sides.
You were there. You saw them together a lot, I imagine. What, just generally, I think, when you want to know more about people, you kind of look at body, and sometimes you learn a lot. What were they like when they weren't on camera, but they were together?
Well, we didn't see them live together when they weren't on camera. Usually we'd see them, sort of roll on stage, and, there were, we all sort of were looking at our magnifying glasses out and looking for any kind of tension. There wasn't much, but, if you looked on Tuesday night, on election night, I mean, it looked a little awkward, and then, there was she had asked to speak on Tuesday night, and Steve Schmidt and Mark Salter turned her down, turned her request down, and then afterwards, it was very interesting, John McCain left the Arizona Biltmore where his campaign party was, and then shortly thereafter he went on stage with her husband Todd, and they posed for pictures and recorded about their cheering her on. It was very interesting.
Holly Bailey, thanks so much for being with us. Fascinating conversation, and as we certainly learn more, sometimes you learn more about looking back than you do looking forward in a situation like this. Certainly sort of maybe scratching your head. Good question, just 8 years ago. When we come